All right, welcome to the Young Turks. We got a lot of news for you today, as we always do on Mondays. I'm going to start with Hurricane Irene. It has 28 different implications, all of which we're going to get into in a second. One is certainly about global warming and climate change. Another was about Michelle Bachmann and how she pulled a Pat Robertson and blamed it on God. We'll get to that in a second. We're going to start with the president versus the Republicans and the comparison to their reaction. But first, let me tell you the facts about Hurricane Irene. We had power loss of 5 million people. The death toll climbed to 35 folks in 10 different states. And private estimates to the damage along the coast is put at about $7 billion. Now, the hurricane, when it finally made the shore and made landfall, was not as bad as initially suspected. So, you know, there were worries that all of New York was, not all, but a big portion of New York, Manhattan, was going to be underwater. That didn't happen. Interestingly enough, though, inland, it caused more trouble, more damage in Vermont, huge flooding, record flooding, not anything seen in the last 100 years, apparently. Many historic sites wiped out, and so there was considerable damage, obviously, though we avoided some of the horrific damage that could have ensued if the early predictions were correct. So now, since we had all this damage from Hurricane Irene, you know, the $7 billion possibly in damage, 35 people killed, 5 million homes without power, etc. Obviously, the president's going to come out and have some reassuring words. The Republicans will not. Let's start with the president.
Our thoughts and prayers are with those who've lost loved ones and those whose lives have been affected by the storm. You need to know that America will be with you in your hour of need. As I said yesterday, we're going to make sure folks have all the support they need as they begin to assess and repair the damage left by the storm.
All right, so that makes sense. The president's saying, hey, we're going to help people out. Republicans apparently don't agree. Eric Cantor says, hey, you know what? We're not going to give any money to these people affected unless it's offset. Let's let him make the case.
But we've had discussions about these things before, and those monies will be offset with appropriate savings or cost cutting elsewhere.
You know, given your background and everything you've said, you believe that any federal money that comes out for Hurricane Irene needs to be met dollar for dollar with spending cuts? Is that right?
Again, just like any family would operate when it's struck with disaster. It finds the money it needs to take care of a sick loved one or what have you, and then goes without trying to buy a new car or put an addition onto the house.
All right. So, hey, listen, man, if you're not going to get the money, sad day for you. I got to go find it from somewhere else. And if it's an emergency that you need to recover from, do you want me to make an investment so that you can get beyond that emergency and later we can figure out how to pay for it? Because obviously you have to pay for it under any and all circumstances. No, apparently not. No, unless you give me something else in return, I'm not going to give it to you. In fact, other Republicans say not without a fight. They're ready to fight to make sure that the people who suffered under Hurricane Irene do not get the funding immediately, okay? Now, this is a real issue because FEMA is starting to run out of money. They were under $1 billion, and the damage alone from Hurricane Irene is estimated at $7 billion. But you know what? They were already starting to pay for the earthquake damage, by the way, the epicenter of that earthquake was in Eric Cantor's district. They asked him about it, give him points for being principled, I suppose. He said, my district? No, I don't care. You got to give me an offset, otherwise no money, right? And by the way, FEMA's partly running out of money because we already had all those tornadoes that ripped up the middle of the country, Joplin, Missouri, et cetera. And now the new plan by the Republicans is take the money that we were going to give the people who suffered those tornadoes, take it from them and give it to people who suffered under Hurricane Irene. And the people on the earthquakes, well, I don't know. We'll figure it out, but we're not going to give you any new money, okay? So the great compassion of Republicans. Look, I'm not saying you don't pay for it. Of course you pay for it. The question is, can we get this going? Can we assign it to these people who need it right now and then come back and figure out a way to smartly pay for it, which everyone should agree to. But of course, the Republicans say no. But I love the final irony of it. They then turn around in one of the articles and say, FEMA doesn't have enough money because President Obama didn't put enough money into it. But wait a minute, you guys are the ones who blocked it, and you're blocking it today. And then you turn around at the same time and go, oh, President Obama didn't put enough money into FEMA. Can you believe this? Of course, it's all the president's fault. They have no conscience, man. They lie without remorse. The press has to call them out on it. If you don't and you call it neutral, well, you're not even anywhere near objective. You're not covering the facts at all. If you say, well, the president and the Republicans, I can't tell who's holding up the funding. I can. How about the guys who went in the press conference and said, I won't give any funding for earthquakes or for these or for anything else until you give me more and more cuts that I want, that Wall Street wants. Because, of course, it's cuts all coming from the middle class that Wall Street is dying for so they can pay less taxes. That's the real agenda of Eric Cantor. By the way, the last time we went through this, what they got was $1.5 trillion in fuel-efficient cars, cuts from that, $1.5 billion in cuts from that, okay? So will we have more fuel-efficient cars in the future? Of course not, no. Because we had a hurricane, et cetera, and the Republicans held it hostage and said, okay, now, ha-ha, ExxonMobil gets paid, you'll have less fuel-efficient cars, you'll have to spend more money on oil, and ExxonMobil, Chevron, Koch Industries, everybody else that's the donors to the Republican Party get paid because of all these natural disasters. You see how this game works? At least you see it. Apparently the national press is like, what? I don't know, everything's even. I'm going to call it even. Okay. So now, that's the first part of this disaster, but it gets worse. Now I'm going to come back to the idea of what might have caused this storm, obviously not just by itself, but the macro picture in a second. But first, I want to turn to Michelle Bachmann. Michelle Bachmann says, hey, you know what? Hurricane Irene might have been because of God. Of course she does. Here's her first quote on it. She says, I don't know how much God has to do to get the attention of the politicians. We've had an earthquake. We've had a hurricane. He said, are you going to start listening to me here? Listen to the American people, because the American people are roaring right now. They know government is on a morbid obesity diet, and we've got to rein in the spending. Okay, here we go again with the soothsayer, snake oil salesman, so-called prophet, Michelle Bachmann, who talks to God all day long. Oh, God, why did you send me the earthquakes? Oh, tell me, please. Oh, it turns out because it fits my agenda. Shockingly enough, God agrees with me. We've got to rein in government spending. Well, wait a minute. How do I know that God isn't upset that Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry are leading in the Republican polls? Maybe we got the earthquake because of Michelle Bachmann and Hurricane Irene because of Rick Perry. And God's saying, oh my God, America, I'm so angry with you. How could you have these two morons at the top of the field? You're going to make those guys president? Are you crazy? Here, I'm going to send you another earthquake. See how you like them apples. How do you know that didn't happen, Michelle? Are you saying you talked to God personally? Are you saying you're a prophet? Is that what you're saying? No, what you are is a liar. You just take whatever you want and pretend God said it. Now, this was so egregious, given the number of people hurt through the earthquake and the storm, et cetera, that she had to backpedal away from it, of course. And then whenever they get in trouble, what do they say? We were just kidding, of course. Here's her spokesperson, Al Stewart. She says, quote, obviously she was saying it in jest. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah. So that's really funny. But I'm sure that her backers took it in jest, right? I'm sure they didn't. Like, the whole reason they support her is because they have the same evangelical views, et cetera, about the Lord Almighty and what they think he's divining through his different actions. But when busted on a national media, and she knows it doesn't play well with the rest of the country, she goes, oh, yeah, I was just kidding about God. Yeah, I didn't mean any of it. Really? Okay, so you don't mean it. So you don't think God has a problem with anything that's going on in the country, right? But wait a minute. You've written over and over again, you've said over and over again that God is angry with the country because we're on the wrong moral path. So which one is it? Are you kidding or are you not kidding? You're a goddamn politician. Ironic. That's what you are. Now, when we turn to Michelle Bachmann, by the way, where is she getting this nonsense from? Partly from Glenn Beck, who said twice on his radio show that the hurricane was a blessing. The one that killed 35 people, it was a blessing because it will lead people to store more food. All right. Now we move on. So let's turn to Michelle Bachmann and Dominionism. Because it relates to this idea of whether she thinks she's talking to God, et cetera, and why God is sending us the earthquakes. So now, there's a long article in the New Yorker about this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it here, obviously. Again, to the idea of, does she mean it or not? Now Michelle Bachmann has a great number of ties to this dominionist movement. Now, what do the dominionists think? I'm going to tell you that in a second. But it's largely, I'm going to give you a quote in a second from Genesis, but it's largely the idea that Christians should rule and they should have dominion over all things. And of course, a whole bunch of kooky people believe this, and Michelle Bachmann is tied to all these different people. I think that's why they were so gung-ho on how Obama's tied to Reverend Wright, because it's projection. They're so tied in with their own reverends and preachers, et cetera, that believe insane things that they think, well, I guess Obama must be following his reverend like we do, right? So I'll give you just a number of examples. One is actually a professor named John Eidsmoe. He's was Michelle Bachmann's professor. She worked on a book with him at Oral Roberts University, their law school. Now, Oral Roberts University is a clown school where they try to mix in the Bible and our current laws, and they come up with some mishmash, and they try to explain our laws within the context of the Bible. It makes no sense. It's for people who are kooky, who don't understand the Constitution and how this government works. Of course, she went to that school. She studied on this professor. That professor happened to, by the way, among many other kooky things that he did, go to a national convention for the Council of Conservative Citizens. That's the modernized version of the KKK. He didn't do that in 1965. He did it in 2005. What does Michelle Bachmann think of him? Quote, he's absolutely brilliant. He taught me about so many aspects of our godly heritage. By the way, another guy who has questionable race issues is Wilkins. We'll get back to him in a second. By the way, also Rushdoony is a person, R.J. Rushdoony, who was a leader of these Dominionists, at least one part of the Dominionists, all of them being highly praised by Michelle Bachmann. He believes we should return to Christian theocracy as it is in the Old Testament, including the execution of adulterers and homosexuals. Execution. When Michelle Bachmann ran the New Heights Charter School in Stillwater, she started up a school with a number of different parents. They eventually had to kick her out. One of the kooky things she did that the parents couldn't stand was she banned Aladdin, watching the movie Aladdin, because it involved magic and paganism. I know, Disney is very troubling. She also said David Nobel, the founder and director of Summit Ministries, was a wonderful person and had all these bright ideas. What was his, one among his theories? Communism, hypnotism, and the Beatles. How the Beatles were communists and they were hypnotizing you to change the culture. Okay, these are the geniuses that Michelle Bachmann follows. And Stephen Wilkins is the man I was referring to, had this book written about Robert E. Lee and what an awesome guy he was. And there goes my phone, which is awesome for everybody in the middle of the show. Okay. Oops, now I just answered it. Doesn't get any better than that. Okay. Fun for everybody. Returning to the lunatic Michelle Bachmann. Okay. Wilkins wrote the book on Robert E. Lee. And what did he say? Among other things, Wilkins says that, that slavery was awesome, that it was dictated by God, etc. I'll give you one quick quote here. Quote number 7 here, if you're following along, Jesus. The unity and companionship that existed between the races in the South prior to the war was the fruit of a common faith. Okay. So since the slaves and the slave owners had a common faith, Christianity, they had this wonderful unity, apparently. I'm not sure the slaves saw it that way, but that's Wilkins' interpretation. What does Bachmann say about Wilkins? Well, she promoted his book, that book, the one I just quoted, on her website in 2006 when she was a state senator, saying what a terrific read it was and how lovely it was. And by the way, that's not just a small throwaway paragraph. The whole book is about how great slavery was and how, it helped the slaves. Oh, for Christ's sake. You see this? This is a sign. All right. Give me a second here. First time in years I've forgotten that. Now that was all in a prelude to the real stuff. You ready for this? So, dominionism. What is it? What is Michelle Bachmann's relationship to it? Great New Yorker piece on it. First of all, one of the leading dominionists is a person named Francis Schaeffer. We've had his son on the show to help us understand all of this. His son has now gone in a different direction after actually shooting some of the documentaries for his dad. This is one of the leading figures in the movement. Francis Schaeffer ran a mission in the Swiss Alps. It was known as L'Abri. You know what that means? The shelter. How similar does that sound to Al-Qaeda, which means the base? And like Al-Qaeda, these fundamentalists teach that Christianity should dominate over everything else. That's why it's dominionism. The Christians should have dominion over all of the land. And that's exactly what Al-Qaeda says, that the Muslims should. Maybe that's why these right-wing fundamentalists are so scared of Sharia law, because they think that's what we want to do. And so this is direct competition to us, that we want to have the government take over our religion take over the government. So what does Michelle Bachmann think of Francis Schaeffer? He is absolutely brilliant and one of the leading lights, apparently, and that she is guided by him. Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Well, here's what Genesis 1:26 says, by the way, so you understand where this so-called dominionism comes from. It says, the man is urged to, quote, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. I wonder if that also includes Michelle Bachmann. She creepeth over the earth. So Christians should have dominion. Not we human beings. Christians should have dominion. In fact, Schaeffer in his 1981 Christian Manifesto, and that is literally the title of the book, said that if Roe versus Wade is not overturned soon, that there should, and that was back in 1981, so it didn't get overturned soon, that there should be a violent overthrow of the government. Again, what does that sound like? Sounds like Al-Qaeda that says if they don't agree with Islam, you overthrow the government. One of the leading proponents of Schaeffer's version of dominionism is Nancy Pearcey. Her 2004 book is called Total Truth, Liberating Christianity from Its Cultural Captivity. I'm going to skip over to quote number 5 here, where she describes her version of this total truth and what non-believers should do. She says, there may be occasions when Christians are mistaken on some point, while non-believers get it right. Wow, is she not merciful? Nevertheless, the overall systems of thought constructed by non-believers will be false. For if the system is not built upon biblical truth, then it will be built on some other ultimate principle. Even individual truths will be seen through distorting lens of a false worldview. That is the book that Michelle Bachmann called, quote, wonderful. It was a wonderful book. So if you happen to be Jewish, well, obviously you have the wrong worldview. And you're going to be wrong 99 out of 100 times. There might be a rare time that you're wrong. You're right about something rather than a Christian. But you got to understand, since Christians have the right worldview and Jews obviously don't, you will be wrong a great majority of the time. So bow your head and listen to the Christians. That obviously also applies to the atheists, agnostic. Obviously, they couldn't be more wrong. Muslims, are you kidding me? Everybody that disagrees with Michelle Bachmann and her lunatic Christian right friends are apparently all wrong, and that's why they need to capture the government. That is part of Summit Ministries, by the way, the 7 mountains they have to capture. One of them is the government. That is what Michelle Bachmann set out to do when she studied at Oral Roberts University. By the way, what was the goal of Oral Roberts University? Well, let's go to quote number 4. In the Journal of Christian Jurisprudence, that was the first law review magazine that they had put out for Oral Roberts University when Michelle Bachmann was studying there. They said it was to, quote, equip our students with the ability to, hold one second, ability to bring God's healing power to reconcile individuals and to restore community wholeness and to restore law to its historic roots in the Bible. So the aim is for the people who believe this interpretation of the Bible to take over the government and to restore the government to the Bible. Well, take out Bible, put in Quran, that's exactly what Al-Qaeda wants to do, right? Religious lunatics who believe they know better than every other religion, every other sect of Christianity, and they must take over the government. Every one of these books is being praised by Michelle Bachmann. It's a wonderful book, brilliant, exactly what she follows. She goes to Oral Roberts University where they teach this. That's where she got her law degree. She worked with Professor Eidsmoe, who goes to Council of Conservative Citizens, the modern day version of the KKK meetings, and says, well, you know, she praises the book by Wilkins, who says that, hey, slavery wasn't so bad. It helped the slaves get along with their slave owners. Yeah, isn't that convenient? And that Christianity sanctioned that. She put that in her own website, saying what a great book that was. That was a book praising Robert E. Lee. Now, by the way, Schaeffer according to the man we started telling you about, according to Bachman, was, quote, a tremendous philosopher, and he wrote marvelous books and was very inspirational. Now, if you're unclear as to whether Michelle Bachman means all this, why don't we go to a direct quote from Michelle Bachman? Here she is. She says, that also was another profound influence, referring to Schaeffer's idiotic movie, on Marcus's life and my life, because we understood that the God of the Bible isn't just about Bible stories and about Bible knowledge or about just church on Sunday. He is the Lord of all life, every bit of life, including sociology, theology, biology, politics. Politics. I added the words there. You can see the direct quote. Obviously, you can see she mentioned politics. You name the area and walk of life. He is the Lord of life. And so as we went back to our studies, we look at studying in a completely different light, not for the purpose of a career, but for a purpose of wondering. How does this fit into creation? How does this fit into the code and all of life that is about to come in front of us? And so we had new eyes that were opened up as we understood life now from a biblical worldview. Now, the reason I repeated politics several times there is because this is her saying, hey, you know what? I want to take our biblical worldview. I don't want it to be just on Sundays at church. I want it to take over everything, including politics. That's why she got into this, by her own words. Whenever she had talked about it before, you can see it in this quote, you can see it in all the things that she said, that I had a calling from God to come and bring this into politics. She is, the Christian version of a group, that wants to take over politics. And look, the guy that she has said over and over, tremendous philosopher, great worldview, the one who guided her into this quote, Francis Schaeffer, said if Roe versus Wade is not overturned soon, we should have a violent overthrow of the government. So is she dangerous? Is this real? Does she really believe it? She absolutely believes it. You don't go to Oral Roberts University to go to law school and figure out how you can meld our laws with the Bible and corrupt our Constitution with your insane view of the Bible because you didn't mean it. You don't say that that's your whole purpose, to bring God into politics, because you didn't mean it. She means it. She is incredibly dangerous. And look, people have to call them out. It was a great piece on the New Yorker, but the media can't just be like, well, okay, some people believe that God, their version of the Bible or their version of religion should take over government and some don't. Or wait, you know what? It's a little impolite to point that out. Let's treat her as a credible source of information. Let's treat her as a credible candidate. No, she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and she's dangerous, and you got to point out the truth to people. Not something that is neutral, but something that is objective and real. That's what Michelle Bachman is about. All right, now when we come back, now the dangerous effects of people like this and how it relates to climate change, how it relates to Hurricane Irene, we'll come back and talk about that. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you. Go.
All right, the big news story for the weekend was Hurricane Irene, which hit eastern states in the United States. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I found a picture on the internet that I wanted to share with all of you guys. Now, of course, Hurricane Irene was supposed to be a horrible storm. People were told to stock up on food. Some people were told to evacuate. For instance, I have a cousin living in Long Island. She had to evacuate. Now, Best Buy in New Jersey decided to take advantage of the situation. So what did they do? They knew that people were desperate to buy water, so they increased the price of their bulk water packages, okay, or bulk water cases.
Right.
How much did they charge?
By the way, this is in Howell, New Jersey, which
Howell.
is pretty close to the coast. I know that Best Buy. It's pretty classy as the hurricane is coming off the coast to, now it's about 20 minutes out or so to jack up the prices. So what did they jack them up to?
$40 for a case of Dasani water.
Hey, listen, if people are in a panic, the best thing to do is to rob them, right? To charge us as much as possible. Now, look, you can say, hey, supply and demand. Everybody's coming in a panic. They need water, and that's exactly when you raise prices. That's just normal markets. If you're a libertarian, you might make that kind of argument, and I understand that argument. But we have laws against price gouging. That's because we don't want to, in case of emergency, cause panic, because we think it's bad public policy. So what we do is we say, hey, you know what? You should keep the prices where they were. Otherwise, there might be bad consequences from it. People fighting over the water, yada, yada, et cetera. And that in times of emergency is not when we want our local businesses or national businesses taking advantage of people. At their time of need, we don't want you to charge them more, rob them, whatever it is, right? So this is not the time to do it. That's why we have laws. When Best Buy was informed of this, I'm sure that it must not have been true, or they immediately took action, right?
Well, this picture was posted on a website called thechive.com, and one of the bloggers there said, all right, I need to call and confirm that Best Buy is actually doing this, because anyone can take a picture like this, right?
Right.
So he called Best Buy, and he actually spoke to an employee and a manager, and both of them refused to either confirm or deny that they had sold the prices of, jacked up the prices for the bulk water.
Yeah. He kept saying, all you got to do is deny it, man.
Right.
Say, if you're not doing it, just say, hey, no, we're not charging that. You're crazy, right? And they wouldn't deny it. Obviously, they were doing it.
They sent him over to corporate, and this is what corporate said. We will be price matching any local supermarket's price for cases of water if they are needed for the day, only as a gesture of goodwill.
Now, we'd like to price gouge you, but we've been caught. So as a gesture of goodwill, since we don't want to be prosecuted, we will, out of the goodness of our hearts, lower the prices to what they used to be, which is comparable with the shopping centers nearby.
But Best Buy is in a panic, okay? Hurricane Irene aside, Best Buy is in so much trouble because now people are smarter and people have so many other ways of getting electronics and merchandise that they normally would have gotten at Best Buy that now they can just easily buy online for a fraction of the price. You know, there was a story that we never got to, it was released last year, about how Best Buy is in financial turmoil because people have all these cell phone apps that will price match or not only price match, compare all the prices. So people will usually go and buy whatever they're looking to buy from Amazon rather than Best Buy. So they saw an opportunity to, you know, rip people off, and they took advantage of it.
Now, look, that was a local Best Buy. You can't put it on all of Best Buy
Right.
nationally, okay? That being said, I can attest to the national trend, which probably all of you can. I remember when I used to go to Best Buy to buy CDs, to buy whatever. I used to go to Best Buy to buy all that stuff, right? I've been to a Best Buy in, I think, 5 years. I might have gone to buy some CDs 3 years ago, right? It doesn't even occur to me to go to Best Buy. like when you mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, didn't I used to go there? I'm like, what would I buy there? I'm like, now it almost is like a foreign concept.
I've had a gift card to Best Buy, and so has my mom for months now, and neither one of us have used it because, well, whatever. Best Buy is so much more expensive than buying something on Amazon or online.
If you and your mother don't want to let those go to waste, I'll take them.
Okay.
But you know, I throw away pennies. But anyway, the thing is, so okay, you have a disaster come, there's a hurricane, and you go out there and you maybe go into a store after the windows are broken out. You get some water, you get some diapers, you get some food, and you're a criminal. I can't believe you're taking advantage of the situation and ripping people off, going to these stores and taking their merchandise like some thugs, like some refugees. But then, yeah, if they come to my house and catch me with a case of water, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm sorry. If you could take it back, that's okay. I mean, I was just there for the situation. Just like once Best Buy gets caught, all they have to do is say, oh, you know, we'll match the price and we'll calm it down.
Yeah, and all the people who paid the price gouging prices already, what are you going to do? Okay, JR's making a good point. It's a form of financial looting pre-storm, right? But anybody get outraged by that? No, because the guys at Best Buy management didn't have, were wearing the right clothes. They had suits on, so it's okay. That's the rule you got to know, by the way. If you're going to do anything, especially if you're going to steal money, have a suit on, okay? Then you say, what? I'm fine. I'm a respectable member of society. Okay, what's next?
Warren Jeffs, the polygamous Mormon who is serving a life sentence in prison, is in a coma and he may not survive. Now, it turns out that prison officials actually induced the coma because he had been fasting for 3 days and he was extremely weak.
Sometimes you induce a coma to save somebody's life. I don't really know how it works because, damn it, Jim, I'm a talk show host, not a doctor. Having said that, 3 days of fasting led to this, to that kind of dire consequences. Something seems weird, right?
Absolutely.
Here's my alternative theory. Remember a couple of weeks ago we did the story of how he was masturbating 15 times a day. That's what did him in.
He's finally exhausted.
Yeah,
he needs nutrients in order to masturbate that much, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he's fasting and masturbating 15 times a day, no wonder the dude's in a coma. Okay, I mean, if he kept that up for these several weeks, I'm surprised he didn't pass away earlier.
Leave it to Cenk to link those two things together. We both did that story
Because
together.
it's inhuman.
And it didn't even come to my mind. Because I don't think about Warren Jeffs masturbating.
It's inhuman, okay? It's not possible. There are limits to humanity. Apparently, Warren Jeffs has run into those limits, okay? That's what you get if you mess with God. I probably shouldn't add that last part, but... You know, in that story, I was reminded of all the heinous things that Warren Jeffs did. You know, he had some soft porn tape of him trying to convince girls to sleep with him or to talk about how he slept with them or something.
It was actually an audio recording where he was trying to convince a 15-year-old and also another underage girl, I'm not exactly sure of her age, to have sex with him. And it was a 12-year-old?
12-year-old, yeah.
Oh, what a disgusting person. Okay, so a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, he was trying to convince them to have sex with him, and he said that that would, you know, bring them closer to God.
Of course, yeah, of course it would. It's funny how close the Almighty is to a cult leader's penises, because it always brings you closer to God somehow when you're right next to that, right? By the way, you know how many people, and that wasn't just him trying to convince them. He did convince them. He had sex with a 15-year-old, and then later he had sex with a 12-year-old.
By the way, the 15-year-old gave birth to his child.
So that was fairly confirmed, right, that they had sex.
By the way, I'm very curious to see what his take would be on female masturbation.
Oh, I mean, if he was a female, probably 150 times a day.
No, I know, but can you imagine?
I mean, I don't think there'd be a limit. But my guess is he would probably say it's frowned upon. He talked to God, and he says, God says instead of masturbating for women, they should come and service him.
Of course.
That's my guess. But I tell you all of that because the most amazing fact is that he has at least 10,000 followers who believe that he's a prophet.
That's an incredible number.
10,000 morons of the earth who think that this guy is talking to God and that God is directing him through his penis. Okay? And I know it's brainwashing. I know it's not totally fair to call them morons. I know how brainwashing works and it's tough. And blah, blah, blah. But come on, man, snap out of it. They're giving away their 15 and 12-year-old daughters to this animal. Yes. Anything? No? I thought Steve was coming to the mic. It turns out he was coming to get JR snacks. Don't put the snacks next to the mic next time, JR. All right, what's next?
Child marriage is a serious problem in the United States. In fact, the Journal of Pediatrics says that young girls who get married are more likely to suffer from psychiatric disorders such as depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. But the most fascinating aspect of this story is not that people are getting married at the age of 16, it's that in Texas, people can get married at the age of 14. What the hell?
This report can be summarized in, what the hell?
What's fascinating about that is you're not allowed to drink until you're 21. You're not allowed to smoke a cigarette until you're 18, right? I'm not condoning all of these things, but I'm just saying. But in Texas, you can marry at the age of 14. Your parents can agree to it, they can consent to it, and then you can get married and have sex at the age of 14. Right,
and in a lot of states, you don't even need your parents' consent if you're getting married at 16. So, look, it's remnants of the old world, right? In the old days, people got married younger, right? And so some of these laws remain on the books. There's laws on the books that if when you come to a stop sign, you must get out, honk your horn like 7 times, and shoot a pistol into the air. Okay, now some of those are still on the books, but the thing is, these are a little bit more relevant. You might want to take these off the books given the situation as it currently stands in the country, where we frown upon 14-year-olds getting married and having sex with God knows, a man of what age.
Right, and it has nothing to do with, old world America and people getting married in their early teens. It has to do with a red state that wants to do whatever they can to make sure that young people have sex after they get married. So it's like, okay, so how do we solve this problem of people wanting to have sex before they're 30? Why don't we try to get them to get married as early as possible? So when they have sex, at least it's when they're in in a married, committed relationship.
Right. So. Both those things are true. The old laws are because of what the situation used to be, right? But in the southern states, in the red states, those laws have not been taken off the books, whereas they have in other places, right? And it's a mixture of all those because you got 50 states, obviously they all have different laws, et cetera. But we do know in the red states, a lot of those laws still exist. And is it because of what Anna said? Absolutely. Because they think quicker to marriage, then God loves it. He looks down on you and says, go get him, right? But if you do it outside of marriage, then everybody burns in hell, right? So when do people want to have sex? When they're teenagers, right? That's when the drive kicks in. So let's get them out the door and get them married so that God is okay with it. Well, that's a terrible idea. And by the way, a story we did at the end of last week shows you that when that happens, the divorce rates go through the roof. That's why those same exact red states in the South have the worst divorce rates in the entire country.
They do. You know, it's amazing to me that 14-year-olds could even get married and have children and somehow live on their own and be independent. How is that even possible? Like, I'm already 25, and the thought of getting married, having children, living a truly independent life is amazing to me. It's so difficult, right? How do you expect 14-year-olds to do that?
Well, look, two things here, right? One is, it depends on the context of your times. In the context of our times, absolutely not. It's crazy, right? In the context of the old times, absolutely. I mean, kids you could be a king, I think, at the age of 12.
Right, of course.
Kids went to war at 13, 14 all the time, got married 13, 14. Once you hit puberty, you could naturally do that. But that was the old times when we lived to the age of about 30. Right? Now we live to 70s and 80s, etc. And in some ways that has stretched out our time and stretched out our youth, which in a lot of ways is great, right?
Absolutely.
So in our current context, to take a 14-year-old who is very innocent compared to the 14-year-old from 100 years ago or 200 years ago, etc., and to say, good luck to you, have a kid, good luck to you. That's crazy. But some people, unfortunately, have not adjusted. They say, Yahweh told me 2,000 years ago to get impregnated as soon as possible within a marriage and to have like 78 kids. I know, when you needed to fight the Canaanites and the Philistines, you needed 78 kids so you could beat their 77 kids, right? Among other reasons. We don't live from that time. For us to try to, and as I read more about dominionism over the weekend, and how they try to, the Bible is 100% true, every word is true, and everything else is a lie, and then the Bible must defeat everything in its path and take over politics, because whatever the Constitution says is false if it doesn't agree with the Bible. It's from 2,000 years ago, from people who had no idea. They didn't know anything. They didn't know chemistry. They didn't know biology. They would look at the stars and go, oh my God, why did God poke all those holes in the heavens? And then we still follow that, and you have these, and then the consequences comes all the way to higher divorce rates, higher number of kids and split families, etc. It ripples all the way down, and those kids suffer, and everybody suffers, because you're still looking at something that a rabbi wrote 2,000 years ago, probably partly in jest. Like, oh, yeah, I remember when God, we smashed the Canaanites. Okay, anyway. Sorry, I get carried away.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have a muscular brand of Christianity.
That ought to be fun.